Welcome back to the Two Mods podcast presented by Kentwood Ford in Alberta here in Edmonton. I am in Calgary right now. We're getting ready for a big game. This is going to be a big one for the Calgary Flames that are playing the San Jose Sharks. But we have a great guest joining us. He joins us quite often lately, and we appreciate always him having him on. So we have Vernon Fiddler, longtime NHLer and great real estate agent in the Dallas area. The guy's just killing it with the Cheney Group. So, Fids, how's it going, bud?
Good, good. How are you? It's always good to catch up and talk a little hockey.
Yeah, no, it's always fun when I can get a chance to get you on and when you want to come on too. So it's very well popular guest on the podcast, and there's probably no other better time to get on in some good ways that the NHL hockey's on, but we're going to talk some WHL stuff too, and we'll get into all that as we get going. But the Dallas Stars are in a collision course here, Fidzy, to get the Colorado Avalanche. And obviously, with Landeskog looking like he's going to make an NHL return, the series is going to be big. But you follow the Stars a lot. You're an alumni there. Just your thoughts on the season that Pete DeBoer, Jim Nill, and that rest of that group have, and obviously a good friend and Jamie Benn has had too.
Yeah, it's obviously there's some hardship going on right now, but overall I feel like they've had a very strong season. They've battled lots of injuries, losing key guys in key moments, and some of the younger guys I feel have stepped up in a great way, and in Thomas Harley and Maverick Bork has stepped into a bigger role at times. Even the defense core and losing Heiskanen for a long period of time. There's a lot of minutes to be eaten up, and I feel like those depth guys, have done a really good job. But we've obviously ran into a bit of a uphill grind right now, and a lot of media and that is taking it to another level where we're trending in the wrong way. But at the same time, we were still fighting last week for the division title, and right up there in the top of the conference, and done a lot of good things. We got great goaltending from both goalies, but I just think they've got in a little bit of patch of overplaying a few guys too much. And you saw last night they scratched Harley to, I think, give him some nights off, getting him ready and fresh for the playoffs. He's had to take on a huge role coming back from the Four Nations. But it's you're scared that there's never a switch to turn on. But our team is so well coached, like Peter DeBoer, Steve Spott, Alain Nazardine. These guys are all veteran guys that have been around the block a long time. So I think that it's well known now that we're playing Colorado in the first round, and what a story this is going to be in the playoffs. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it's crazy with Rantanen. And Rantanen, I feel he's been playing very well as of the last 3-4 games. He's really picking up his pace. You could tell he's getting tons of scoring chances, and he also plays lots of minutes, and he's gone through a bit of a stress blender with being on 3 teams in less than a month. So there's not a switch, but at the same time, when push comes to shove, there's I'd bet some money on this team. They got great leadership in Jamie, and Tyler Sagan's on the verge of coming back. Actually hoping to see him play. I'm heading up to Nashville with the team to watch the last game, so looking forward to seeing him out there again, because not only is his play really good, but he's got that leadership. He's a guy that really speaks up in the dressing room and is well respected in the regards of when he says something, people listen. So it's going to be great to get him back. And then, I think Heiskanen's right behind him. So it's always an exciting time in Dallas. The sun's out, the golf clubs are out for an alumni, where we golf usually during the day and then go to the home games at night, and then try to catch a few on the road too. But beautiful time to be in Dallas, and our team and our fans are really excited about the playoffs coming up. And our building is always one of those buildings that can be a factor in the playoffs, and I really hope the fans can jump on the team bandwagon again, and really support the team going deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, and even to go to the Ratner thing, almost you can almost say four teams in a month with the Four Nations Finland team too. So
Right. Yeah.
it's been that like that's unheard of in terms of what he has had to go overcome. And it's a great life, but it's that's their job, and sometimes it can be pretty hard too. I want to get your thoughts on Matthew Shane. He's looked good, almost pretty much a point per game player here. Kind of Nashville walked away from him, and he's ended up finding some great chemistry, leadership. It's worked out great for him. Obviously, nominated for the Clint Cansley Award. He's done things with our podcast too. As a veteran guy that savvy as yourself throughout your whole career, how cool is it to kind of see, that it's just not always the young guys taking over. The old guys still got a lot of left in the tank. Fidzy.
Yeah, he has been an amazing addition for our team. He's driven our offense the last few years, and he's really given us that element of a giddy up guy up front that kind of drives our team in a lot of ways offensively. And he's made Tyler better. He's made Rupe Hintz better at times. He's made tons of guys better. And watching, I went to the Winnipeg game, and there's games like that where he can turn on a dime and make something happen when you don't think nothing's going on. And personally, as a ex player playing against him, I was always super aware of him whenever he was on the ice. He's got great speed, amazing skill, obviously amazing brain, and make something out of nothing. And you really had to be cognizant of his what speed he was going, because he was going fast, but then all of a sudden he could go even faster. So yeah, I loved his suit the other night too. He had the master suit on. I thought that was probably the best outfit I've seen all year. PK's got to take note on that and admire that on the panel. But yeah, he's been such a great and all the feedback or the stuff I hear anyways on the outside is like just a great teammate, and really supportive with the younger guys, and the older guys too have really gravitated to him. So it's great to see an older guy come in like that and just playing for, he's not asking for 10 million a year. He just wants to play in a good spot. And you got to you got to show him a lot of respect, because he probably could have gone a lot of different places and played for more money, but he chose to be here because he knows the core of our group is on the verge of pushing at or knocking at the door to win a cup. And as a player that's made his money and played a lot of years in the NHL, um, one of those guys that's sticking around to take less money just to play for the love of the game. And then you hear about all the things he's doing in the community. And as a guy that did a lot in our community here, that's just something that you admire, because they have enough on their plate, never mind doing more and more in the community and helping out in that regard, especially when he's playing at a level he's playing, which he's playing like he's 30 years old still. So a lot of respect for a guy like that, and really hoping that they can make a push. And you see these guys that haven't had a chance to win the cup yet hoisted, because I'd be the first one to grab a beer and chug it with them when I see them, because I know what that's like. Your career is kind of coming close to it, and not so much for him, but your years are winding down. You just don't know when you're going to get an opportunity. But I sure hope I can see some guys like Jamie and Tyler win another one, and Matt, and the guys that really deserve it, that have paid a lot of time in the league and done so much good for the game.
Yeah, yeah. We had exchanged a good text with him the other day, and just a great guy. And I love that how passionate he is about his faith and in the belief in God, and puts that forward. And you guys share that same intimate that your household, and so it's really cool to kind of see in terms of all that. Just one more on the Stars here, and just get your thoughts on the Flames. We'll move to some Oil King stuff here, but. I like how DeBoer's kind of staggered the starts for the goaltenders down the stretch here, just in terms of making sure that load management for Ottinger isn't too much, because this probably will be a long playoff run. I do think they'll win this one. And I walked down the hallway with DeBoer last year, and I just looked at him and Spotter, and I just said, "You guys deserve one." And at the catwalk heading to the hotel at the Marriott in Edmonton, that hallway. So just kind of end up walking by each other and mention it to him. And just a great coach. But how smart is that move, would you say, Fids, in terms of managing that workload down the stretch for a long playoff run and knowing that Ottinger has to be and will be at his very best come playoff time?
I think it's a great move, and it just shows the confidence in our team that Pete has. Even when we're not winning, he's still doing it. He's still staying course on his belief of, if we're gonna have a successful run, we're gonna need our goalie to be our one of our best players. And I think for Pete, staying true to the course that he's taken is giving, Ottinger the nights off. Physically, I know he could probably do it, but you don't only want your goalie going into playoffs physically ready, you want him going in there mentally ready. And it's a lot of games. And they always say goalies, they should be able to play every game because a player does it. Well, mentally they're on the ice the whole game. There's tons of pressure on them from the media. And I think mentally more important than physical, being sharp is just as important, because there's so much more eyes on them, especially in the playoffs. And anytime you can get an elite goalie, superstar goalie, a night off, I think it's going to pay major dividends in the long run. And I hope to see that in the playoffs. And I just think it's a really smart move on the management and coaching side of our organization.
Yeah, they very well said. Just get your quick thoughts on the Flames here. We're obviously in Calgary. We cover these guys a lot. I don't know how much you've seen of them, but just the fact of being, a former player in this league, and at times maybe you could know that, hey, you're being counted out and no one has a lot of respect for you. And the fact that the Flames have put themselves in this situation with 3 games left where they could make the playoffs, they do need some help on the out of town scoreboard, but they also got to take care of their own work. But from afar, in terms of what you've been able to see, you think it's pretty remarkable in a way that an organization and a team can put themselves in this kind of situation, knowing that there was not a lot of expectations coming in from the outside. Inside, maybe differently, but the outside.
Yeah, I do follow them. I follow them a lot. Husky's a Kelowna Rocket alumni, so being in Edmonton, while I watch Blake, I always find their games on the same times as when you're up and at it. So I have followed them, and then I know Blake Coleman well from he skates with Blake in the summer, so I always try to follow those guys. I actually texted him the other day, and he's been robbed the 2 goals in 2 weeks ago in 1 week that were disallowed. I mentioned that. I just thought that was highway robbery from the NHL. But I love the way they play. They remind me a lot of old Barry Trotz and David Poyle's teams, where you get a little bit of everything from every line. And you have your high end players, but you also have a lot of guys that are gamers, and on their back end they have some great skill. And then their goaltending has been outstanding, with the young guy Wolf there. So do watch them a lot. I love the way they play. They're above pucks. They're hard on the forecheck, the in your face kind of style of play. And I think it is remarkable that every media source had them out of the race before the season even started, had no chance in making the playoffs, and they're knocking at the door there. So would really like to see them punch their ticket and get into the playoffs, because it'd be really cool to see another Canadian team in.
Yeah. And obviously a guy, Joel Hanley, you guys know very well too, in terms of
Just an outstanding guy. One of the most popular teammates that's come through our organization, and
yeah.
just a steady Eddie guy. And I don't think he gets enough respect for what he brings to a team. Never makes a mistake. Yeah, not the biggest physically, but won't back down from anybody. So, but just another guy. Like, their scouting staff's done an amazing job bringing in another character guy when we traded for Tanev, I think it was, and had to give him up as a part of the deal. I was actually with the owner the day they traded him, and he called Hanley because he knows how well respected he was in the dressing room. But I know the guys, when he showed up here, I saw on social media that there's a big entourage around him and things like that. So great to see he's succeeding in another organization. Very happy for him.
Yeah, we just connected with him the other day, so exchanged some messages and told him that we knew you guys, knew the Fiddlers. So he's a
Yeah.
very gracious guy. All right, let's move over to our Oriole Kings report here, sponsored by Boston Pizza and our great friends at Kentwood Ford too. Obviously a good year for Blake in a lot of development side of things. And where were you at with him as the father and also a hockey mind in terms of preparing him for an upcoming draft that's going to be in Los Angeles, and what you saw from his season with the Oil Kings this year?
Yeah, it was, obviously going into the year, we knew that, there's going to be a lot of eyes on him and a lot of different distractions and the social media nowadays with all the rankings and stuff like that. Um, but one thing I loved was the Luke Pierce, the head coach, prepared him for this. Like we went up to development camp on our own and wanted Blake to be around. And I know they had a conversation about what's it going to look like if you're ranked where you want to be ranked or where you're going to be ranked if you're not happy where you're ranked, like what is that going to look for you mentally. And they went over both scenarios and kind of prepared them for it. Like Luke's a really good communicator with the boys, and I really like that because it prepared him for one or the other, and it kind of set him up for like, well, I know where I want to be, so I'm going to put the work in, and then I don't have any excuses on that side. But we knew going in that Blake was going to have a tons of distractions with the NHL meetings and the different things that come along with it. Did we know that he was going to make the CHL prospects game? No. That added more pressure on him because that team gets announced, and then he's got to go play against the Americans, which he's played with and for, and the Halinka and some of those guys. So that was obviously another distraction. But then there was another distraction in the World Junior Camp where he gets an invite for that, and then we have to deal with that. You're stressed about going to that 2 weeks before. You don't know what to expect, and now there's even more pressure on that. But the way Luke handled all that, and Kurt was involved in that too, obviously chatting with him. I think they just handled it so well of just reminding Blake that no matter what happens, like you're a really good hockey player, and we really believe in you. That's where we drafted you in the first round a few years back, and just always kept him believing, but always kept him on top of it. And there wasn't one night that we went to bed here in Dallas that we were worried that we need to say something to Blake or we need to follow up with him in the morning. Like every time we talked to him after a game, like there was already a message sent to him or there was something talked to him about or just helping him through that. Like there was such a mentorship with Coach Luke that when Blake had problems, he didn't have to come to his dad and mom anymore. He had someone to really lean on with Luke. And man, as a dad and a mom at home, like your boy's 4,000 miles away, that's something that I'll be grateful forever because we didn't know what to expect. I've never been in this situation of being a top prospect and be knowing you're going to get drafted in the following draft. Like this was all new territory for us. So Coach Luke and Kurt, they've been through all this because that's their job, to develop players and help them through the process of the pressures and whether it's positive or negative. So that's one thing that we're super thrilled about. Like Blake coming home just for a couple of days before he's off to U18s, left this morning for Plymouth, and I had a chance in the backyard. We were just putting and golfing and stuff, and just what the positive feedback I got was with the team, how great the team's culture is, and how accountable the coaches kept them, and how well coached and prepared they were every night. Yeah, they didn't get the results they wanted in the playoffs, but you got to remember Kurt's done a pretty good job with this team. 2 years out of being the worst team in the league and winning a championship, then worst team in the league to, we're knocking at the door of being able to compete against any team. And we showed that this year. We played in the toughest division with, Calgary, Medicine Hat, Lethbridge, Red Deer, and us. I mean, not an easy division to play in when you're playing against, four teams that are still left in, or three teams that are still left in it, in that conference. So super happy with Blake's development. He got stronger. He got, there's lots of things that he improved on. He's lots to still improve on, but we could not be happier with the decision of sending him to Edmonton and trusting those guys. And and Devin Prott on the defensive coach side, like I know he had Blake thought the world of him too, and just one of those guys that never. Blake told me yesterday, just never panics, just always under control, always positive, doesn't just talk to talk, always giving good feedback, and that's what you want to hear from your son. That's trying to follow your footsteps. Is that he was coached, he was pushed, he was communicated well to, and he had people to lean on when he needed somebody to talk to, and just couldn't be more happy with the situation in the season for Blake.
Yeah, and from the view that we had, I agree, and obviously Kurt Hill that was at one of our mental health events in the fall, and that was amazing to him to be a part of the hot stove panel for that, and just talking to him and the how much the hockey knowledge and smarts he has in terms of building the right team and building the right culture, and then going down to Luke Pierce. I haven't had a chance to connect with him in my passings. I should send him a message on LinkedIn. We did match on there, but in all your years, Fids, of being around coaches from your minor hockey league level, I want to go back to Luke here in terms of we're seeing a lot of today's coach and what today's coach looks like, and a lot of what you just said. How of a blessing is that? And was there one thing that that stood out for you guys as a family? I know you touched on a lot of things there, but is there one thing that stood out to you, and just in terms of like it gives you that extra comfort in terms of having that right mindset and what he's been able to do for Blake's future, and not even just Blake's future, every kid that's on that team, because they're all going to be better players and better people regardless of wherever they go in their future. But how encouraging is that?
Oh, it's very encouraging. I even know last year, like, Blake as a 16-year-old playing on one of the younger, weaker teams in the league. There were nights where, we were like, oh boy, we're looking at each other like one of us fly up there, or, is this something that, and, we talked to Blake when he got home, and he'd be like, like how'd you feel, or what were you feeling? Like, well, I wasn't great, but you know what? I talked to Luke after the game on the way home. He phoned me and said, these games are going to happen. You got to bounce back from them. You just got to learn from your mistakes and get back on the horse. But imagine a young boy getting that call. He gets to go home and rest instead of bottle it up and think about it all night, not get any sleep, and not know what's going on the next day. So that communicative element to the coaching nowadays, I think, is so important, because these kids, they lean on their authority to get reassurance that everything's going to be okay, because they have a tougher time evaluating their games. Back in the day when I was playing, I had to learn how to, because I didn't talk to my coach in 4 months. So I think it's just a huge upside when coach is a good communicator. And don't get me wrong, he can push Blake too. He can be hard on him. But when you have a guy that phones you after a really tough game and says, hey, you're going to bounce back, like you played some great hockey, or gives them some positive feedback, guess what happens? He wants to play harder for you in the next game. And when you don't shame somebody and beat them down, there's going to be positive response from it. And I just think that's the way the new era coaching is going. And you see it even in the NHL. Like, these coaches have got to communicate with their players and let them know where they stand, negative or positive. But then you also got to be some sort of a therapist, psychologist, to get the most out of them by being some sort of a salesman and getting them back on track and selling them what you feel is going to help them help the team the most. And I commend not only Kurt for that, because that's part of the culture in Edmonton with the Oil Kings, but it's something that I think they do a really good job, even with Devin Prott. Didn't know much about him coming in, but it sounds to me like Blake, he loved the way he communicated and never really showed showed panic or just like too much um, doubt on the bench where it just you make a mistake, go right back out there. Well, guess what? That shows the kid that the coach believes in him. So like I said before, just couldn't be happier with the results and the way these coaches treated not only Blake. I know that they're treating the other boys too,
Yeah.
and everybody has their own opinion. But from what I saw, even in the stands, watching the way they communicate with the boys on the bench, they're constantly teaching them. It's a development league. They're not pros. They're learning. So just super happy with the results and just sure hope that there can be some more positives next year and they can continue to build what they've started and move forward with the group they have and the pieces they've added and get better and better as Kurt brings in more players and builds assets in the draft cupboard and hopefully they can be knocking at the door to be a top team next year.
And we'll finish up on that. One more question on that. Like how bullish are you and excited are you for next year in terms of, obviously, there's the draft, but then just because you get drafted, that doesn't mean the work stops. The work continues. But what's kind of next for Blake? What's next for you guys, and in terms of obviously a good summer, and what's to be had for a positive and great year?
Yeah, we were actually just talking about that all today. Like there's not going to be much downtime with Blake he's starting the World U18 today with the team up in Plymouth. They fly to Dallas here on Tuesday and they play an exhibition against Norway on Wednesday. So that he's got to finish that out. That ends May 3rd, and then the combine is June 1st to 7th, and then we'll make our way to the draft in LA and see where that goes. Obviously, we're hoping that we're Blake's lucky enough to get selected and find a path for himself, and then there's possibility of the once you get drafted, then you got to go to a development camp, and then looks like the World Junior showcase in mid-July. So it never stops, but we're hoping to try to get him some rest and maybe some beach time somewhere along the way. But
Yeah.
he's a very focused young man, and but as parents, we have to find him some time to take his brain off of hockey because there's definitely been a lot on him, but just got to be supportive and be mindful of what he needs and just to support him as much as we can.
Yeah. Well, Fids, anything else you want to add before we sign out here? So appreciate you coming on.
No, I don't think. I think that's good.
Okay.
How was that? Was that pretty good for the?
That's we're good here, man. It's always a pleasure having you on, and we appreciate the time that we get with you, and obviously continued success in the real estate industry, and great and good luck and great blessings.
And also congrats to you on all this stuff you're doing for the minor hockey community. I just think it's great the awards and acknowledgments you're giving out. I know you probably don't hear it a whole bunch, but it's always nice to be recognized, and what you're doing I think is very commendable and uh, on your side it just goes to show the heart you have with our community and how much you care about these kids. It's nice to have a mentor like you to throw these guys a bone when they deserve it. So good job on your side.
Thanks. Good Millwoods boy kids giving back as we are always taught, right? So
That's right.
yeah, exactly. All right. Well, appreciate the kind words, Fids, and all the best to you guys going forward here.
Oscar.